Hello, everybody, and welcome to Good Tech, an ongoing discussion around ethics and technology. I'm Elizabeth Perry with ITCA, and today we're going to start with a question. What if you, as individuals, had the choice about how your data was used online? What if it wasn't up to a few corporations to use your data for their benefit? I'm talking about a fair data economy. How do we go about making it real? As a reminder, if you have questions or comments during the show, you can call the number on your screen and we'll do our best to get you to join in the discussion. So here to help tackle that question about a fair data economy and to shed some light on how data is currently used and how we can make a shift that benefits you and society at large, respecting our rights as individuals, is someone whose work centers around creating a fair data economy. Please welcome from Helsinki, leading specialist in human-driven data economy at SITRA, Tiina Harkonen. Tiina, welcome, and thanks so much for coming on the show. I know it's a little bit late in your neck of the woods, but it's an honor to have you with us. I know the audience will be eager to know what we mean by a fair data economy. Could you please explain that for us?
First of all, thank you very much for having me. It's fantastic to talk about fair data economy. If we look at the dictionary says that fair is just and appropriate, unbiased, and so on. So what does fair mean in that sense? When we talk about fair data economy, what is that? Well, first of all, it's fair for all parties. It's fair for all the stakeholders in data economy, i.e. the individuals, the companies, the society as a whole, the public sector, you name it. So it's fair for all. So that is the definition of fair. Fair data economy is something that we don't currently have because the super platforms or the platform economy is the one and only business model, so to speak, at the moment. And we want to have.
Right. So could you do us a favor in the image that we just saw? What does that mean?
To me, that's not fair. You see all those lovely colored stripes. And if you think about what those are, and you look at the people standing next to the colored stripes, you see that the stripes are rather long compared to the people. And those stripes are the terms and conditions or the terms of agreement of the super platforms. The purple one is Instagram, the yellow one is Snapchat, the blue is Facebook, and so on. So are we supposed to understand those terms? Are we supposed to have the understanding and the time to read those terms and conditions? I think we have other things to do in our life than to read all those A4s. The photo, by the way, and the installation is by a young man called Dima Yarovinsky from Israel, and he's a UX designer. So his approach to those terms and conditions maybe comes from the UX world. And I think it's a lovely picture and a lovely idea, and it very much makes it concrete how impossible the terms and conditions are to the individuals. We're not lawyers. Of course, those terms have nothing to do with customer experience, for example. And what surprises me as a marketing person or a person with a very strong marketing and business development background is the lack of customer experience thinking. If you look at those are meant to cover the behinds of the super platforms or the companies. They're not supposed to be customer friendly, and you can certainly feel that. To me, that's not fair. Yes, I know I can click on the I agree, or I can choose not to click on them. But do you really have a choice nowadays? Because if you're a parent of an active child that has a hobby and you want to contribute somehow, you probably need to use Facebook, you know, to see the parents' rota or see the training schedule. If you're in an organization or work for a company, you probably have to use or create a Google account because you need to fill in the Google documents. So do you have a choice? Not really. It's not voluntary anymore.
Right. So this is a tough job, and we've talked a lot about this on this show, about waking people up, you know, to the dangers of not having a choice. How do you do that? You know, how, you know, only a few people, a few big tech players have so much control. They have the keys to our most personal information. So how is this dangerous, and how do you wake people up?
Well, I think people have already woken up. Many people have woken up, and more people are doing that. I think, for example, the My Data movement is a fantastic example on that. If you talk to your friends now compared to, let's say, 2 years back, I think you can hear the worry. People are getting more and more worried. I don't think that many people are saying that I have nothing to hide, which is ridiculous anymore. I think people are getting worried and they want to do something. They want to have a choice. There are multiple initiatives, both you know, in companies, but also the civic organizations are trying to tackle the problem of privacy. So I think there are a lot of people waking up or have already woken up.
Okay.
And what do we have to worry? What do we have to worry? Because didn't Facebook just say that, you know, they want to become the, what was it, the privacy company or something like that?
Yes.
You know, so isn't that just lovely?
Yeah, it's we, you know, at my office, we kind of laugh when that happens, but, you know, that's another story. So let's talk about SITRA. How did it come about? And from what I understand in my earlier conversations with your colleagues, it's a think and do tank, right? Yeah. What do you mean by that?
It's about not just theorizing, but, you know, exploring and experimenting. We are a peculiar organization since we have a funny history. We're actually a gift from the Finnish parliament to the Finnish people 51 years ago. So we are independent, non-political, and luckily we have our own endowment capital. We have invested our money very wisely. So we have plenty of money to explore new solutions. We call ourselves Future House since we want to build a better future, and for us sustainability is very, very important.
And so you talk about IHAN, IHAN, as an acronym. Can you also explain that a little bit?
Yeah, IHAN or IHAN is a project which was sold to me as a mission almost impossible. And I loved all those three words, mission and almost impossible. That means that there is a possibility we can make it. So here I am. trying to tackle the unfair data economy with IHAN, we are actually creating a method for data sharing and building a foundation for that particular fair data economy, which is a new kind of data economy. We are also describing and documenting guidelines and ethical principles to help companies become more fair. We pilot new ideas that are based on personal data and always based on trust and consent. And we are also trying to get companies aboard to change their business models, since we believe in data sharing and finding new insight via that data sharing, which means, of course, that you can create new products and services.
Mm-hmm. So you touched on it a little bit here, but what are your goals for the next few years? What do you hope to see happen, and how are you working towards those goals?
Well, we want to see fair data economy happen. So, and apparently this is the right time. We're gaining momentum. There are other initiatives that are striving towards this fairer data economy. We want to get the companies aboard, because without the companies, no data is moving anywhere. So we want the companies to understand that there is an alternative business model to their sort of old-fashioned linear business models. We want them to understand the concept of data sharing in ecosystems, whether they are open ecosystems or closed ecosystems, where they create new services with their current business partners that, for example, are members of a supply chain. So getting the businesses on board is very, very important. Also, we wish to have an impact on the EU programs, development programs. We want the political decision makers to understand the importance of fairness and trust in data economy. So we are traveling to Brussels and back and explaining all these things to those people as well.
Well, I certainly hope that your dreams come true, because it's very near and dear to our heart too. So, so you talked about, I'm quoting you here, you say, where there are data and resources, there is power. So, absolutely. And so, yeah, tell me about that. And how do you see that changing?
I'll give you an example. If I'm a Finnish company, let's say a Finnish or a Swedish or a German or Spanish company, and I want to have a relation with my local customer, and I want to advertise to my local customer in Finland, what do? I give money to a super platform in US or China, and I get dumber at the same time. So I pay to a super platform to show my advert to my Finnish customer, and then I get stupid because I only get a teeny weeny little amount of that data back. So I pay the super platform to become more stupid. Where's the point? They, on the other hand, hoard all that data around, maybe around that advert. So they know everything that happens around that click. And to me, that's really weird. Something is wrong in that model.
Yeah. So, speaking of power, many wonder, and also maybe give up in a way. How is it even possible with what we're calling now, Shoshana Zuboff made very popular, the term surveillance capitalism. Mm-hmm. It seems that this economy is hardwired, especially in the US. I think that Europe is leading that movement toward fairness and privacy and all that. But how is this dream attainable? I mean, that's a big question, but.
If somebody says the privacy is dead, don't believe them. Do not believe them. The privacy might be dead today or tomorrow, but can always have an effect on the future. So don't believe people that say privacy is dead. You do have a choice. And if we get to that fair data economy, everybody has a choice. It is certainly attainable because all we need is the technical components, a platform where we can work technical solutions. We need those rules and those guidelines that we share ethically, and then we need to have trust. And we need the trust between the individuals and the companies. We need trust between companies and trust between individuals and the public sector, for example. So we need to utilize the fact that we have trust. So trust could be actually an advantage to us, for example, in Europe. So we need to utilize that better. To me, the current platform economy business model is way by sell by date. I think people need or want an option, and this is an option. And what the companies need to understand, particularly in Europe, that if we build our services, our innovation on trust, people are willing to use those services. Because, for example, we had a survey in 4 different countries. I think it was France, Germany, the Netherlands, and Finland, where we asked people whether they trust the platforms or whether they trust digital services. And a huge amount of people said that they have stopped using some applications, or they are sort of limiting their use because they don't trust these companies. And if that lack of trust is hindering business development, hindering innovation, we are in trouble. So we have to start with the trust.
Well said. Despite so many businesses making their fortune off of this attention economy, you also say there's money to be made. Now, maybe you touched on that too, when you say that it could be to people's benefit to earn trust from their customers and make that an advantage. Is there anything else about making money in this fair data economy that you want to talk about as a fund?
If we think about the current data economy model, and the super platforms hoarding that data, that of course has to do with the fact that us people, we individuals, think that we are the customers of the platforms. Of course, we're not. We're just raw material. But anyway, they get a huge advantage because they are learning more and more and more. And with that data, they can teach their AIs and their algorithms, and they are getting better at it all the time. So what happens to small and medium-sized companies, or what happens to other companies that do not have these super platforms targeted to consumers? What happens to their ability to innovate when all that data is going elsewhere? Of course, we can pay for that data, but we only get that little glimpse in time. And who's there to regulate the prices of those data products? There is a lot of money. The data economy is currently valued at more than $7 trillion, almost 7 trillion euros. So that is a big chunk of money. And does your company see any of that money? Where's your money? Where are the European super platforms? What do we have? Spotify? Zalando? I don't know. We don't have many. And for example, in the US, there are more than 100 platforms that are that their revenue is more than I think more than $1 million. So their space, we need to get our fair share of that $7 trillion US dollars. And we don't get our fair share if we don't have data. So the data holders need to be, they need to play by fair rules. They play by their own rules currently, and the European companies see that as a problem. We had another survey made in the summer. In the summer, we conducted a business survey in, once again, Germany, France, the Netherlands, and Finland. And the top 3 reasons that were hindering innovation was that the big tech companies are playing by their own rules. And that's really sad. So once again, one good reason to have a fair data economy business model.
So this is a tough question. I certainly, am curious to have your answer to what sort of technological infrastructure is required for this kind of shift.
Well, IHAN is a technology agnostic, but we do have a blueprint. We don't actually create anything ourselves, or we don't code anything. We have businesses and other organizations to partner with us. They collaborate with us. And together with all kinds of organizations, we have created a blueprint where we have these functional and non-functional requirements documented. We are also going to have a sandbox where companies can experiment with fair data. They can start rehearsing, with data sharing. They can get to understand how ecosystems work. And then we are also creating a rule book for companies, because to be able to create trust, we need to have these rules between the companies, so we need a rule. And that rule book also has a very strong element of ethical rules. So all those 3, we need the technology, but it can be anything. It can be blockchain, it can be something else. We don't care as long as it's fair.
Right. So are you actually investing in companies, or do you have partners that you're working with, or how does it work? Because you call yourself a fund, people will be curious.
Yeah, we don't invest in companies. We don't invest in pilots. We fund pilots, and currently we are funding multiple pilots. We started with a sector that we're very familiar with. SITRA knows a lot about health and pharma. So currently we have 4 different pilots from health and pharma, because we feel that there is so much to gain, so much to benefit from health data. Because what we're so very strictly regulating the data that the doctors and hospitals get, but people have their Apple Watches, and people have all kinds of gadgets nowadays. You know how you sleep, you know how you eat, you know how you run, and so on. So we have this other unregulated data. What if we could combine those 2 data and get new insight? We could get, for example, real-world evidence, which is very, very important for the pharma sector, because they need to create new drugs. So we could help ourselves to get better drugs and better treatment via sharing of data. We have a pilot about type 1 diabetes of children. And you can imagine what it is to be a parent that has, let's say, a child of 5 years old, or maybe 15, even worse, because they start experimenting and, maybe secretly drinking wine, and all you can think about is how's his or her sugar levels. Is he going to be in a coma? Is she going to faint in school? What will happen to my child? So we need to get tools to measure the sugar all the time. We have these different chips that you can put on the skin, and then you get the data flowing. But you need to be able to share that data, for example, with the child's teacher or the some kind of hobby instructor, trainer, so that that person understands that when the child starts to run in circles, there's something wrong, and he or she might be in a coma within the next 3 minutes. So we can actually create safety because as a parent, it's horrible to know that anything might happen to a child at any time. We also have a very nice pilot about travel health. For example, if you travel to the Tokyo 2020 Olympics and you're a Finn or maybe a Nordic person, we don't know yet, you could, if you break your leg in Tokyo and you go to a doctor who doesn't speak English, you have your phone or another app with you, and you can share your data with the doctor, and you can push a button and say, please translate this into Japanese. So we have that kind of pilot as well. We also have some very interesting technical pilots about concert management. There's a company called Data Fun that have created a concert suit. And then we have a very interesting from the music sector called Mycelia. I have a little thing here. This is called the Creative Passport. It's digital, since it's both physical and digital. Mycelia is an ecosystem for music makers and companies that need music performances. So an artist called Imogen Heap has it's her brainchild, and we are funding them to disrupt the music industry. So plenty of very interesting pilots.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. Imogen Heap happens to be one of my favorites. And I'm looking forward to coming. Let's talk about the My Data conference just for a moment. We're skipping around here a little bit, but I want to talk about the My Data conference. What are we going to talk about there? And what is Imogen Heap, the star that I love so well, going to be doing there? And what is your involvement in that?
Of course, we are funding Mycelia. And to us, her sort of idealism is very important, because did you know that you as a music maker, for example, if you play guitar in a concert or you play violin or sing in a band, it might take 2 years before you get your money. And that, I think, is in all European countries. 2 years, isn't that horrible? If you're a music maker, how do you live? You need that money there and then. So she is willing to disrupt the music industry, and she's creating an ecosystem where you can, grow as a music maker, find opportunities, find companies that need your performance, and at the same time you get your money. It's fair, a lot fairer than 2 years at least, and you find other music makers so that you can make music together. To us, it's very important that she always says that Spotify made listening to music easy and lovely. We all love that idea that we can, take our music everywhere. And she wants to do the same, but she has the music makers in mind. So I think that's fantastic.
Now, will she be playing music at the conference?
I don't think so. I think she's going to talk about Mycelia and, her great ideas, but I don't think she's going to sing this time.
And what about your involvement with My Data and the conference coming up on the 25th through the 27th in Helsinki?
Well, we are one of the founding members of My Data Global. So it's very important to us to be there. We honestly think that My Data is the event to be, the conference to be when we talk about personal data, because these point of views are very different from the point of views you hear elsewhere. If you go to a business conference, a standard business conference, or you go to a marketing conference, you don't talk about these things. You don't talk about, the consent or fairness. So this is the place to be. And I think people attending the My Data conference are trendsetters. They are sensing, they are smelling something in the air that's going to change the whole game for the data economy.
And if you want to go and see, you'll be on stage. So if people want to sign up and meet you, they can go to www.mydata.org and find out more about that conference as well. So I want to talk about the Wild West. This is what we're calling the current situation. Am I right?
Yeah, we could talk about Wild East as well.
Yeah. Where is it? Am I, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're talking about the state owning the data, or is that where we're going to come to eventually, or what? How do you explain that?
I think in Wild East, the state is already owning the data, which is slightly worrying. In the Wild West, I think the super platforms are owning the data. So we're talking about two very different kinds of data economies. There's the Eastern one with the Big Brother kind of state-owned data. And then there's this Wild West in the West where the super platforms own the data. And somewhere in between there is this fair model. And that could be the European model based on, for example, GDPR. We could take the GDPR to the next level, make it a bit easier for the companies, and sort of upgrade the GDPR to something that gives tools as well as regulation. So I think GDPR is an opportunity for Europe. There are other countries that are considering something along those lines as well. Japan is very interested in GDPR. They are creating regulation of their own. We know that in the US, there are states very interested in creating GDPR type of solutions. So Wild West is a place where there's no place for SMEs, or if there is, they have this very, very tiny piece of that big data economy, 7 trillion game.
So I would like to see, I always think of it as sort of a revolution in tech, because so many people now are just, it's the big breakup of big tech and people, trying to regulate it and trying to, and criticizing since the Cambridge Analytica scandal and all this stuff. And so it's my hope that little tech, can come, can come together and build this, maybe this is part of the fair data economy. I know, ITCA
I love that word, little tech. That sounds fantastic.
I made it up. No, I didn't make it up. I think somebody else did, but I'm talking about it. So, but wouldn't that be great? Yeah. I mean, I think that when you say that, we all deserve a piece of that pie, that's what comes to mind. So I'm hoping that comes to life. But
absolutely,
yeah. So I want to talk about privacy a little bit. And at IDCA, we focus on privacy. We're a platform for communication for organizations and businesses where they can connect and share and store all in one platform while their privacy is intact. What is your take on that kind of privacy where, you own your own data, it doesn't get out to, like Facebook is taking people's data and selling it to third parties. You know, it brings to mind, actually, before we go there, a question that our CEO asked about giving away your data to an application like Facebook. And bear with me because, you know, I'm not like super techie, but they use that data to create profiles of you. And so now you can, maybe they say you can turn off data sharing. But what happens to that profile? And how can you be sure that that profile is no longer getting out there? Does that make any sense?
It does make sense. I don't think you can be sure of anything when we talk about the super platforms. We have too many bad examples of how they've messed up, basically. So
right.
Who can we trust? And when we trust, what do we trust? You remember that picture with all those colored lines? We have clicked, I agree. What did we agree? So it's not just that they are doing things behind our backs without our consent, but it's also about the consent being so difficult to understand that you don't really know what you're giving consent for. So if you're careful with your privacy, you cannot use super platforms or big tech services without understanding that your data is going places where you don't want it to go. And what bothers me a bit is that they always talk about targeting ads. Now that sounds lovely because I don't want to get all kinds of ads, but it's not just about the ads. It's, like you said, about the profiles they're building and the profiles they are selling. So to whom are they selling and what? Not about ads only, it's about a lot more.
Yeah. So in a fair data economy, how challenging is it to create systems? I mean, we talk a lot about blockchain and, you know, as being an answer to people owning their data, but isn't that that sort of baffles me, because I don't think of blockchain as being particularly safe. Is that a solution in your mind?
Blockchain might be a solution. The technology is already there, no matter what it's called. It's about, it's more about agreeing to do some things in a particular way. It's about committing to the consent of an individual, and that's what the company should be doing right now. The companies that want to be trendsetters, the companies that want to be trailblazers, should always be asking for our consent. And of course, promising also not to share our data with other parties that we don't like. So the companies that understand that privacy is coming, that the people are starting to change their behavior, people are becoming more careful. Companies that understand that will survive in the future as well. So all those trailblazers, please start creating these new fair services that are based on data sharing, which gives you new insight on data.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
when it happens, so that the people, the individuals trust you as a company, you get more money because people actually use those services. So it's not about being naive. It's not about getting a brand advantage. It's about getting more money because people want to use your services if they trust you.
Yeah, that's great. Now you talk about, I had a conversation with one of your colleagues too at SITRA, Mira, and she told me that there were 3 things that were high on the list as far as shifts that people need to think about. One was mindset, of course. One was the business model, and one was the technology.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we've gone over some of that, but how do people change that business model, for example?
Well, it is a leap of faith. And of course, you have to feel a little pain as a company. You probably want to grow your revenue. You enhance your customer loyalty. You want to reach new markets. There is something that you want, and you need to think differently. So if you have this willingness to think differently and experiment, then you are the right company to start experimenting with these IHAN type elements. But I think I think the company should be thinking about the way they are working now. How long does that current business model last? Because people are changing their behavior all the time. The companies are changing. So that old-fashioned linear business model where there's a supply chain, there's a manufacturer, and there's a seller and so on, does that really work in this digital age any longer? It doesn't. If you want to innovate, if you want to create something new, you need to get data from other companies and share yours with other companies so that you get new insight. And after that comes, innovation and new products and services. And if those services are based on trust, then you get your customer loyalty is guaranteed.
So, can you tell us some success stories of companies or people or whose mindset you've been able to change or help to understand and.
For example, the public sector in Finland, they are listening to us very carefully, and there are. For example, in Europe, the Smart Cities initiative is one of some very good examples. Our pilot projects, absolutely, Mycelia had started already before SITRA came into the picture. There are plenty of people, plenty of organizations that have already changed their minds. So the change is there already. We just need to gain momentum. We are talking to political decision makers, and in the EU, they already understand the dilemma. So there are a lot of initiatives, a lot of development programs, and a lot of organizations that have already started to do something. So it's not only about us, it's not our doing only, but certainly we are one of the initiatives trying to make an impact. And of course, to us, the companies, as I said before, are very, very important because, for example, in Finland, we are so very digital, all the surveys say how digital we are, we have broadband and everything's hunky-dory, but still we don't understand the change in the business model. So something needs to happen. And even though the European countries are somewhat developed in that sense, of course we are, very digital, but so the business models is currently, I think, the problem. And is there enough courage, I'm asking, do companies really want to take that leap of faith and experiment? Maybe if the pain is big enough, but let's see. I believe there are a lot of companies willing to make that change.
Well, I certainly hope so. And, we're such a data-driven society. And I know that a lot of people that are trying to do good, tech for good category, are just struggling because investors are still married to the way they made their fortune, which was off of a ad tech based company. So this is a challenge, and I think, and I'm very pleased to meet you, because you're doing things differently, and you're really trying to make a difference. So I applaud that.
Yeah, absolutely. But together we are strong. SITRA is not going to make anything alone. We're not going to achieve anything without these networks, without these ecosystem, without these organizations. We are talking to civic organizations, public sector organizations, companies, political decision makers, individuals. There are many tools we can use. For example, we will start a lecture series, a Studia Generalia type of lecture series for both small businesses and for citizens, to educate them about data economy so that they can get their fair share. And of course, then it comes to that question you asked previously: is it possible for the individual to make money out of their own personal data? I believe there is that chance as well. So you have to do a lot of things. And in IHAN, we are only 15 people. So we are trying to facilitate that change with, connecting organizations, connecting people all over Europe, and hopefully beyond Europe as well.
We just have a few more minutes, so I'm going to let you, what are your final thoughts? What do you want to leave the audience with today?
Well, I would like to invite everybody listening to join us, join the data revolution. As you said, you used that wonderful word, revolution. But I think we need something that big. We need a revolution, because if you think about us as individuals and our naive belief that we are the customers of the super platforms, then we're rather lazy as humans, so we don't change the ways we behave that easily. So I would like to invite you all to talk to your friends and your networks about these things, and come to our workshops. Start drafting the blueprint with us. Start enhancing the rule book with us. Come to our events. Listen to our webinars. Join the My Data movement. There are so many things that you can do.
All right. Well, if you'd like to reach out to me or to Tiina and SITRA and find out more about this, what we're calling now the revolution, data revolution, you can join me on idka.com, where you can set up a free account anytime, bring your groups and your organizations. And Tiina, where can people find you? What's the best way to reach out to you? Should they just go to your website?
Yeah. SITRA.fi, or my Twitter handle, TI Harkonen, which is a bit tricky, but we can probably share it later.
Yeah, well, you can see her name on the screen, so you can tell how to spell her last name. It's difficult to pronounce those last names, by the way. All those dots and all those accents. It's very difficult for we Americans.
Yeah. But when you think about Tiina Harkonen, it sounds difficult, but it means Tiina Little Bull. So call me a little bull if you like.
Excellent. So thanks so much again, Tiina, for joining us today. And I hope to see you soon. I will see you soon. And everyone out there, have a great rest of your day, morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again soon on the next Good Tech.